Hello, I'm Hannah, and this is Hannah's Books. My family and I have been enjoying a few days at the beach in South Carolina, in a town where my family has lived for several generations. We've gotten to enjoy both stormy days and warm, sunny days along the shore, and we've gotten to see several of my relatives, and we'll see more this afternoon and tomorrow. Christmas Day was warm and pleasant down by the ocean. One of my favorite sights was this set of 3 Sandy Claus, as my father used to say, getting ready for a walk on the beach to celebrate a long evening's labors successfully completed. For some of us, especially, but not only Jewish folks, Chinese food and movies both play a big part in our annual Christmas traditions. I was especially thrilled to see Brian at Book Wanting share his own Chinese food tradition, complete with an excellent fortune cookie with multiple possible interpretations. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Although I'm eager to see the new movie Little Women, I'm holding off a few days to see it with 3 of my fictive sisters in a few days. And rather than Chinese food, I cooked omelets for brunch and vegetable soup for dinner. But in order to mark the culinary tradition of Chinese food, I spent part of the day reading Brian Dott's The Chile Pepper in China, a Cultural Biography, due out from Columbia University Press in May of 2020. Although I have some hesitations about this book, and I'll talk about them a bit at the end, I have to say that the book's subject is far more fascinating than I was imagining. I saw that Dott's book was coming out just a few weeks after having a great conversation with my husband about the Columbian Exchange. That is the movement of flora and fauna and disease, etc., between the New World and the Old after colonization began in the Americas. Historians usually talk about the movements of food like maize or corn, tomatoes, squash, and potatoes. As I was writing a lecture for an online history class that I was planning to teach to international students, David asked me if the chili pepper was also part of the Columbian Exchange. I hesitated. Yes, I'd always thought of peppers in general as a food indigenous to the Americas, but that couldn't be true, could it? Was it really possible that the various cuisines throughout East Asia and South Asia didn't have access to chili peppers until the 16th century? Surely not. Well, it didn't take long to figure out he was right, and honestly, I felt pretty stupid not to have been aware of the fact earlier. And then this book popped up, The Chile Pepper in China, and I found out I was not the only clueless person. In the introduction, the author points out that, as he writes, today chilies are so common in China that many Chinese assume they're native. After he started his research for the book, he presented some of his thoughts to a group of Chinese historians who were equally taken aback, astounded, as he said, that chilies are not indigenous. Brian Dott starts out by suggesting that unlike many spices or foods that entered into global trade, chili peppers were likely to have been brought over from the Americas only because multi-ethnic crews aboard ships had packed dried chilies to season their food as they traveled aboard ships. Just a few leftover seeds were all that were needed to bring the plants to new lands. Unlike many items of trade, the chili pepper grew easily in a variety of soils and temperature zones. And unlike even such native foods as the Szechuan pepper, the chili plants were small and easily grown in individual gardens. This fact had the consequence that chilies could not be a moneymaker for anyone, so it was not embraced at the beginning by elites who sought to engage in financial pursuits. But it did spread widely within non-elite communities, both as a spice and as a vegetable. Although chili did not automatically fit perfectly into the pre-existing Chinese system of flavors and of elements, it was inserted in a compelling way and that allowed rapid integration of the chili into culture more broadly. Dott explains how it was embraced by some and not by others, and how it became such an essential part of Chinese culinary traditions. But some of the most interesting parts of Dott's book discuss not the culinary use of chilies, but the degree to which hot peppers became integral to Chinese medicine, to common language, to artistic representations, including important literature, and to symbols of revolution, whether a revolution in gender ideology or a political military revolution. In short, the author of this book wants to know how the chili became so central to Chinese culture at large. One of the author's main questions is how this foreign plant became not only ubiquitous in many regions of China, but how it became seen as or believed to be indigenous, or at least authentic. Dott has a pretty fancy way of saying the same thing. Constructed authenticity does not necessarily correlate with true indigeneity. As I said, this is a fascinating topic, and Dott pulls out some fascinating aspects of the topic by looking thoughtfully at some relatively unconventional sources. But the book suffers a lot from significant repetition of ideas and some pretty weak organization, especially at the level of the chapter. The version I read on eArt from Netgalley is a pretty early copy. Although I doubt it, it's certainly possible that the author might spend more time with an editor tightening up the argument and the prose before final publication. I hope so. Despite its limitations, this book is a wonderful look at how global trade and a sense of local or national culture can coexist. The author makes no claims for broader applicability of his work, but I think this analysis of the process of constructing authenticity might be useful in many other works of cultural history or other cultural analyses. Well, thanks for joining me today for my bookish take on partaking of Chinese food during Christmas. I'm off to enjoy another day or two at the beach, spending as many hours reading as I can before I return home. See you soon.